Hello, everyone, and welcome back to 305 Insights, where today we're discussing the U. Game 2, Miami Hurricanes go up against the Florida A&M Rattlers and come away with a 56-9 victory. They scored double digits every single quarter, 15 in the first, 10 in the second, 21 in the third, 10 in the fourth. And it's what you expected, but we still want to dive into it because this is the game where you or the games, because you're going to have Ball State up again or up next, where you iron out the kinks. And there's a lot of good to take away from this game, and there's some stuff that needs to be worked on. But we got to start off with Cam Ward. You knew he was going to have a huge game, and he did. 20 of 26, 304 yards, 3 touchdowns, 4 rushes for 13 yards, and 1 touchdown. So he had a total of 4 TDs on the day. I mean, he went out there and did what you expect Cam Ward to do. And kind of surprising he was in the game for that long, but you kind of want to use these games to also pad the stats, so to speak. And he did. On the rushing side, Damian Martinez is really... Before I get into this, I just... The University of Miami is one of the most indirect schools to benefit from the demise of the Pac-12. Damian Martinez was an absolute monster at Oregon State, and they don't really have anywhere to play. He transfers to get the ability to have a bigger spotlight on him in his last season. Cam Ward, after much NIL persuasion, backed away from declaring for the NFL draft, but he was in the transfer portal as well. These two young men are fundamentally changing how the nation and how recruits are viewing this team, because we've said it for a while now. Talent is not the issue at the University of Miami. It's coaching. But certain players can mask average coaching, can mask mediocre coaching, and can amplify good coaching. Cam Ward is making this offense look so beautiful for explosive recruits out there in terms of either running backs or wide receivers, tight ends, et cetera, et cetera. Damian Martinez is proving what, Mark Fletcher did last year, Jay Allen did last year, but on a much more efficient scale, that if you run behind this line, you're going to eat. He had 11 carries for 91 yards, 8.3 yards per carry, and a touchdown. And I know, he had a solid game to start off against Florida, but as we discussed in that podcast, they were up so big that they didn't really – I think he had 16 rushes. So 11 rushes this game and 2 games so far, carrying the ball 27 times and having the numbers that he's having. Again, I know Florida A&M isn't the greatest, but 91 yards and a touchdown is really good. And the way he runs, it's infectious. He runs with a combination of speed and power that hasn't been seen in quite some time at UM. And, you've always had speed at UM, but you haven't necessarily had the combination at this level. Mark Fletcher Jr., 5 carries, 42 yards, 8.4 yards per carry, and a touchdown. Jordan Lyle, the young man, is seeing a lot of, not a lot, but he's getting a lot of cleanup duty. 6 carries, 40 yards, 6.7 yards a carry, 1 touchdown. Jay Allen had a cameo appearance, 5 carries, 25 yards. Overall, the team, 38 for 225, 5.9 yards per carry, and 4 touchdowns. You really want it was concerning that it took the running game a little bit to get going, and it's not ideal, but again, you can't really be too upset about 225 yards and 4 touchdowns. Xavier Strepo, 4 catches, 104 yards, Mr. Reliable. He had a touchdown as well. Isaiah Horton, like I said after the Florida game, I really expect him to have a big year this year. 4 for 66. Not a lot from the tight ends today, but you did have 1 touchdown from, and only on one reception, Elijah Arroyo, and Elijah Lofton had 2 catches. That's the thing that was interesting, is you got to see the young kids. JoJo Trader had a catch. Ray Joseph had 2 catches. Nikar had a catch. So a lot of the young guys, even at quarterback, you had Reese Poffenbarger, get in there. 5 rushes, 12 yards, 6 passes for 20, 6 of 7. He did have a fumble, though. But just a really solid, and again, it's exciting to watch UM right now. I know it's Florida A&M, but still, again, this is a team a few years ago lost to Middle Tennessee State. You want Florida A&M to come in here and leave battered and broken. No offense to the kids playing. Not in a literal sense. But this is a really good start to the season. You got Ball State next. You're going to have to do the same thing all over again. Only thing you really, well, we'll get to that in a second. Let's talk about the defense. You had 10 tackles for losses. You had 5 sacks. You had 5 pass deflections. Tyler Barron had 3 sacks and 3.5 tackles for loss. The transfer from Tennessee is looking like a monster pickup while Ruben Bain Jr. is out. You had Elijah Alston, another transfer, get a sack. And you had Justin Scott, the true freshman, 5-star recruit, get his first sack as well. And like I said, Jane Harris, half a tackle for loss. Raul Aguirre, half a tackle for loss. Chase Smith, half a tackle. Malik Bryant, 1.5 tackles for loss. Akeem Mesidor, half a tackle for loss. Austin, Scott, C.J. Clark, all had tackles for losses. Just a great attacking wherever the ball is and just establishing your physical dominance over this team that you should have. And they did. So, I mean, you had 3 interceptions, all of them by linebackers. Darius Hayes, Cam Pruitt, and Wesley Basaint. Just an overall great performance by the linebacking core. And again, both sides of the ball complementing each other. High-powered offense, tough defense. And again, this is a team right now that doesn't have some of its premier players like Ruben Bain Jr. on this defensive line, and they're still showing out. So, again, you had a lot of the young kids play. Like I mentioned, Justin Scott, Armando Blunt had a tackle. Marquise Lightfoot was in the game as well. Booker Pickett had a tackle. A lot of young guys playing. This is what you want to see in these games, because that means the game's out of hand. They're a 46.5-point favorite, and they covered. No, they didn't. Wait, whoops. I'm sorry, I was reading something else. The over under was 55 and a half. And yeah, they barely covered. I'm sorry, 46 and a half. Yeah, 55 and a half was the over under, and 46 and a half was the line, and they covered that by half a point. Whew, it was a close one. What was the last touchdown they scored? 2 minutes left was the field goal. Ooh, that really put them over. A lot of people were sweating that one. But overall, a great game, folks. This is, again, what you're establishing with this program right now. You don't take any days off. You don't want to relax like the Middle Tennessee game. But, there were some things that you really want to improve on. You had a clean game against Florida. This game, you had 8 penalties for 59 yards, and one of them took a touchdown off the board. You went 0 of 2 on fourth down. It's not a good look, especially against someone like FAMU. And yeah, it's just not a lot of terrible issues going on. Like, these are things that can really, improve your red zone rate against UM or FAMU. But I'm sure they were just trying to work on different plays. I'm not really going to harp on that they didn't really execute as much in the red zone. But again, you have to play disciplined football. 8 penalties against FAMU is not what you want to see. So it's going to be a short podcast. Again, I really just wanted to get it out just to, talk about the good stuff that's going on at UM right now and the momentum that they have right now. They're the number 10 team in the nation. Once they start getting in the meat of their schedule, I'm sure the rankings will reflect that a little better, but they're clearly holding the ACC on their shoulders. And man, it's just a dream start to the season so far. And, for the UM fans, the Hurricane faithful, let's hope they keep it up. So a lot of momentum right now in Coral Gables / Miami Gardens where they play. A lot of momentum there, and you might start seeing it reflected even more on the recruiting trail where they've had a few people visiting. Again, you got to factor into the account. You got to take into account the fact that they whooped up on the Gators, and the Gators had a lot of recruits there. That was free advertising for Mario Cristobal and company. You're going to have some people visiting, obviously, at the Florida State game, which is going to look like a brilliant move this year. Obviously, you always have your high-profile visitors visiting in rivalry games because especially this year, that stadium is going to be – it's always packed for Florida State games, but with the way FSU is performing and with the way UM's performing, you kind of hope, and I believe it's going to be this way, where it's going to be a lot of UM fans who aren't going to sell the tickets. First of all, I don't think there's going to be a lot of FSU fans buying the tickets, but they're not going to sell the tickets because they want to be a part of the atmosphere, and you want recruits to see that atmosphere. So there's a lot of build up to that game when it comes, but you got to get flipping season started, and you got to start planting those seeds of doubt where you're committed to now, and you want to flip and join this program because, again, like I stated earlier, there's a lot of momentum that comes from hitting on some of these transfers, and Cam Ward has made this team look incredible, this offense. Not that Dawson was a bad coach. It's just, again, if you have a good quarterback, and unfortunately Tyler Van Dyke wasn't that, Emory Williams is too young to handle that right now. You bring in someone like Cam Ward who can, and you see the benefits of his offense. Lance Guidry called a good defense last year, and you're seeing how they benefited from, we've talked about it previously at the beginning of the year, pretty much with their recruiting class and how good the defensive line recruiting class was. You had Armando Blunt, who was a 5-star in the 2025 recruiting class, and you were classified to 2024. You flipped him he was committed to you, FSU flipped him, and then he flipped back to UM. You got Justin Scott, who was another 5-star. You got Marquise Lightfoot, who was either a 5-star or a very high 4-star. There's a lot to love on this defensive line. Ruben Bain's only a sophomore. And you're not fully healthy right now, and this team is looking really good. Keep the momentum on the field. Keep the momentum off the field. Mario Cristobal has been able to recruit top-level high school recruiting classes without a good season. Imagine what he can do with a good season, with proof of concept. It's going to be scary to watch if this team gains momentum. Again, short episode this week, folks. Maybe next week it'll probably be short as well because it's Ball State and you expect them to handle their business there. So, thanks for listening to this episode. You know the drill. Like, subscribe, follow, do all that positive stuff on the various channels that we offer this podcast. Spotify, YouTube, Apple Podcasts. Switched up a little there. So, once again, folks, thank you for stopping by and have a good one. And we'll see you next time here on 305 Insights.